focusing on value is the biggest thing.
Welcome to the Foundry, where leaders are forged daily. Each week we investigate themes of leadership, entrepreneurship, and mindset with some of the greatest minds in real estate. And now, the data scientist of real estate, George Roberts.
Okay, welcome back, investors. Today we have a great second half of our interview with Greg Bronson. The first half, we had the opportunity to talk about residential property sectors, including student housing and senior housing. And in this segment, we're going to dive a little deeper, and we're also going to talk about this private credit fund he has. He can help investors with fix and flip originations, pref equity, whether you're closing a deal or for rescue capital, and also some small business credit. There are a lot of things that our financial sector right now really isn't providing, and a lot of gaps in the market. And I think this addresses things very nicely. So regardless of whether you're out there looking for those passive returns, or you may happen to be an active investor who could be helped by one of those aspects of finance, I really I hope you listen to the entire show because we've got some great insights for you. But before we just dive right into it, I want to introduce our guest very briefly. Greg Bronson has over 20 years of industry experience, primarily focused on residential property sectors. We mentioned student housing, multifamily, and senior housing, currently heading acquisitions at Ashland Capital. Again, for details, please check out the first segment, which I think was very brilliant. A lot of thought-provoking and insightful things said. But with that, let's welcome you to the show for the second half, Greg.
Thank you very much, George. Great to be here.
All right, well, here, before we dive into the fund, just one quick question for you. Again, in the pregame, we sort of mentioned some gaps in our current funding environment. Banks really not getting the job done in certain places, and there's an opportunity for private capital to step in. What would you say is the outlook for banks in 2024? And just to frame the question, I mean, we're just over a year from a rash of bank failures. Really didn't know whether that was going to continue or stop. Some people think it may be coming back. Where do you see bank financing right now? And where do you see things coming in terms of potential future failures? Are we past it, or could that return?
So I think there could still be some bank failures. There are a lot of banks with legacy loans that were originated in 2020, 2021 in lower interest rate environments where the business plan, hasn't proven out, and where refinancing proceeds are lower and values are lower. So, there's going to be a lot of challenges, especially in the office space. I mean, office values are down 40+% up to 60% in certain situations. And banks are the biggest lenders to the office sector. A multifamily is a not too distant second to office in terms of the number of distressed and stressed loans. It's part of the reason that we raised this private credit fund, is because there's a big need in the market and transaction activity is slower in the market today. So our investors are looking for attractive risk-adjusted return, and we're opening the credit fund up to others in order to take advantage of the dislocation in the capital markets today.
Yeah, beautiful. And we'll definitely dive into that in a few moments. But, such as the maturity structure of loans, et cetera. But great. I think with that, yeah, let's head right into the private capital fund. All right. Great stuff. Well, another thing that I really wanted to talk about was your private credit fund. You've got some really interesting sectors that you're working at there. The first, I would say, maybe not the most important for you, but we know that we have a lot of turmoil in the multifamily market, particularly. We have a lot of maturities that are coming due in 2024 and 2025, above average. And they're coming due at interest rates that may be far higher than when those original loans were made, meaning that we have the potential for serious defaults. I know that one of the gaps in the market has been the availability of rescue capital. And I see these funds, they're just popping up all over the place. Again, not the focus of your fund, but one of the things you're doing for those out there that might be in a little bit of hot water right now. Greg, describe the situation and tell them what you're doing.
So we have three different strategies. The one that you're primarily speaking about right now is preferred equity. As you noted, financing is much less available than it was, 2-3 years ago because interest rates are higher. And so loan proceeds are down. So there are groups that need additional equity in order to get deals closed. And we're finding opportunities to help in that case where we write smaller pref checks than what is typically the market norm. So those are $500,000 to $1 million pref checks. And, we're seeing a lot of interest in that offering. In our credit fund, we're also doing fix and flip originations where we don't hold the loan on our balance sheet, but we sell it and just make the origination fees and the yield spread. And we're also doing small business credit where we get paid handsomely for filling small business needs, that don't fit banks because their timing is going to be too long in order to get through credit and turn funds back to the borrower. So we're able to move faster and get outsized return for being able to provide that. For investors in the fund, we're doing something that's very differentiated, in terms of what else you see out there in the credit investment environment. There's a lot of funds, that have 5-year lockups, 3-year lockups where you invest and it's a private equity structure and you can't get out. We're offering 90-day liquidity to our investors after an initial lockup, but that lockup is only 9 months. So the ability to get your capital out if you have a need, if there's an emergency and you need access to the liquidity, is something that we're very cognizant of. And so, we've made that available. We're offering 12% annual return, which comes in the form of quarterly distributions. And we made our first quarter distribution just a few weeks ago. And, our pipeline is really robust. So, we're confident that meeting that is going to be very, very simple through this offering. The last piece that we're doing is we're subordinating our capital in the fund. So 10% of the capital will be ours in a first loss position. So basically, in any debt investment, there is equity underneath that debt. It would take a loss of all of that equity, as well as a loss of 10% of the equity in the fund, of the capital invested in the fund, before an investor suffered any loss. So, we think that that's a really compelling value proposition. We're putting our capital in a first loss position, which shows how confident we are in the business model. We're offering 90-day liquidity, and we're giving a 12% distribution to investors. So, that is very different than what we've seen out there and what our competitors are doing. So we're excited about it. We have a big pipeline, and we're confident that we'll be able to fill all the demand that's out there.
Great. And one of the reasons why I like to ask questions like this, I really like to connect people, and I see this podcast as an opportunity to do that. I think you pretty well delineated who should reach out to you. So this could be anyone who, for example, needs pref equity to close the deal, pref equity for rescue capital, could be fix flippers who need you to originate the loan that you sell the note, and then you've got small business credit, that the sort of credit that just may not be served by some other institution at this time. mean, did I leave anything out? Like, who is there anyone else out there in the investment world that you feel like, this is the sort of person who should reach out to Greg Bronson?
Yeah, I would say an investor who's looking for equity-like returns for debt-like risk in this environment. We're still raising capital for the fund, and we believe that a 12% return, priority obligation of the fund, and debt-like risk with equity underneath those investments is a really compelling value proposition. So I would say anybody looking to borrow from us to access our capital, but also those looking to get an attractive return in this environment because transaction activity is lower. There remains a bid ask between buyers and sellers. And we think we're offering something that, especially in this environment, is a compelling investment.
All right. Well, I also like to ask some deeper questions, like, I mean, really deep, a sort of thing that really gets people to get to know each other, to get to know you. I mean, here you're communicating with people through the internet, but I think it's really fun to just get down to the deepest level. So I'd like to ask you, Greg, when were you happiest in your life?
I'm very happy now, to be honest, George. I am overall an optimistic person, so I wouldn't say that there is an absolute time that I was my happiest. I'm very happy, and I wouldn't say that there's a specific moment that stands out to me.
All right, I love it. Okay, so also some sort of whimsical questions. Love to ask you, okay, what's your favorite junk food?
My favorite junk food is Cool Ranch Dorito chips.
I love it. I'm gonna go back through my notes because I swear somebody had a similar favorite junk food recently. Good choice, by the way. And then if you were going to walk on the stage today at a conference, what would be your ideal walk-on music?
Gosh, that is a tricky one. I think I'm a little bit of a sarcastic person. I have a dry sense of humor. So I would walk out to Mother by Danzig. If you remember that 90s song, he says, "Mother, tell your children not to walk my way."
Nice. Nice choice. All right. So you're telling people not to enter private equity?
No, just not to mess with me is
Don't
really
mess with, okay, don't mess with Greg. I like it. All right, beautiful. Okay, so I think with that, perfect segue. Let's head into our lightning round the 7. You ready?
Yes.
All right, Greg, if you could be known for only one thing, what would it be?
Quite honestly, I'd say it's pretty simple. It's, just being a good person, to everyone around me, my friends, my family, and, my investors and colleagues. My colleagues are my friends as well. But, just doing things ethically and appropriately, and just being the type of person that, people feel comfortable with and good about.
Beautiful. What is the greatest lesson in leadership you've learned as an entrepreneur?
I'd say that it really takes time and commitment to build something, and especially to build something great. And so, that's really what it comes down to.
And what personal characteristic would you say has been most pivotal to your success?
I think it kind of ties to what I just said, my work ethic. I make sure that when I have tasks to get done, I work tirelessly to do them, and I work tirelessly to make sure that I'm not just doing them to get them done, but doing them to get the right end result and the best end result for myself and my partners.
Right. All right. Let's beautiful stuff, by the way. Let's take a nod to the randomness of the universe. I've got my random question cards here. Just tell me when to stop cutting the deck.
Stop.
All right. Top question here. What are your favorite apps?
You know, I'm not quite honestly a big app user. I'm a big user of, things like Waze and the Map app, but LinkedIn is absolutely my favorite. It's not exactly an app, but
No, great answer. It is an app. I
well,
love it.
I know there's an app, but it's more than just an app, right? It's not just doing a task for you. It's a whole business network. And so I love LinkedIn. If anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm always open to new connections. I don't have any problem with cold outreach.
All right, great. Now you mentioned Waze. I love that app. My wife loves it even more than me. I got to ask, like, what voice do you use? Do you remember? Because
so when my son was younger, we flipped between Elmo and Cookie Monster. Cookie Monster was absolutely impossible to understand while you were driving, but it was a lot of fun. Now that he's older, we don't get the same entertainment from the voices, but I haven't explored them too significantly to see what the latest ones are.
Makes me wonder, they have a Scooby-Doo now. That would be completely impossible to understand. Well, all right. For those of you out there who have to be Waze users, I urge you to try Boy Band. You mentioned remembering the 1990s. Those of you who know the 1990s, I think you're just going to love the Boy Band. It is funny, whether you enjoy it either directly because you like boy bands or ironically. I really think that Boy Band has something for everyone. So, okay. All right. Now back to the serious world. So can you name a tip or trick that investors can implement in their business today?
I would say that focusing on value is the biggest thing. It's not a tip or a trick, but just looking at what construction costs are, looking at what comparable sales are and have been, especially in this more recent environment. We've experienced a significant change in the value spectrum of real estate because we were on just an upward trajectory over the last 14 years following the GFC, which was artificially inflated by zero interest rates. And so making sure that you're in a good place relative to what it takes to build something, even though it's a cash flowing property, what is replacement cost, and where have comparable sales taken place is a real key to making sure that investments are sound.
Yeah, great point. And just as I love to say, trees don't grow to the sky. We need to understand that these trends don't continue. We're in slightly rougher waters now. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Jack and the Beanstalk, that's a fable. Just letting you know, in case you're wondering out there. So yeah, very good. In very different times, certainly this is a time that a lot of people are getting washed out, sadly. Well, can you name a book that's helped to forge you as a leader, entrepreneur, or investor, and tell us why?
So I'd say it ties to the last answer. It's The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. Benjamin Graham, was a huge value investor, value-oriented investor. So really focused on, where it makes sense to invest, where you're investing at a good basis and with, a logical thesis behind that investment and business strategy is really what's driven my investment career and investment focus.
Awesome. If I was downstairs, I'd be able to show you my copy. But there you go. It's something I've read multiple times. I would have to say Don't just take Warren Buffett's word for it. Take mine. It is the #1 investing book of all time. All right. Can you set us out with a quote to help forge our listeners as leaders and entrepreneurs?
I would say it's continuous effort, not strength or intelligence, is the key to unlocking our potential, which is a Winston Churchill quote. I think that really speaks to just the whole what I've mentioned earlier. Is work ethic. Real estate people have moved into because it was the flavor of the month for many months, but really, especially now in this environment where rates are higher, rent growth may or may not be coming down. And, we're in this slight stagflation, maybe, environment that we're in. As an owner, as an operator, as an investor, you need to work your butt off to have things make sense and to deliver on your business plan. So to the extent that anyone's looking to outsource that or to invest with groups that are taking that approach, that's what we're doing at Ashland. We just bust our butts every day to find things that are compelling. But to the extent that they're doing it on their own, I'd say effort, work ethic are the keys in this environment.
Right, beautiful. So with that, I just want to make sure that we have the opportunity to reach out to you. So email, website, carrier pigeon, smoke signals. What is the best way for our listeners to reach out to Greg Bronson?
So connect with me on LinkedIn, or my email is Greg, GREG, at ashlandcapitalfund.com.
All right, beautiful. Well, Greg, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to our audience today. A very thought-provoking and insightful interview. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you very much, George. Great to be here.
Indeed.